Hi everyone, just a quick reminder that I post a lot more of these videos over on my Patreon page, full-length videos, so if you like them, head over there. You can also get private lessons from me. That's patreon.com/OrlandoLeFleming. So I hope to see some of you over there. Cheers. Hi, welcome to my walking bass don'ts, 12 walking bass don'ts. Some of you may have heard some of these before, and there are always exceptions to the rule, but I think if you kind of obey these rules, it's a great place to start. So let's get right to it. The first one, don't have an inconsistent sound. Make sure you've figured out your consistent bass sound and your right hand technique, and you know what's going on down here. Quickly, mine is the one finger thing from Ray Brown. I've spent ages getting that together and having that control with the volume. So if you can't just do this and get a consistent sound, you're not going to be able to play walking bass with consistent sound. And that's the left hand strength too. You have to strengthen your left hand with those hammer-on exercises. So don't have an inconsistent sound, have a consistent sound and control. Now number two, same kind of topic, is don't deaden any notes. Now obviously there's examples where bass players do it, Oscar Pettiford does it, there's Percy Heath does it, but you should be in control of the dead notes if you want to do it, and you shouldn't get into a habit of doing it, especially if you're playing some old school music in a big band or something and the notes are supposed to be shorter and you've got a modern sort of setup on the bass. You need to start playing acoustically, raise the action, get some gut strings, try and recreate that sound before you try and start deaden notes. So every note should be as long as possible, long and even, before you start deadening any notes, and really be careful with that. So that's kind of the similar topic, don't deaden your notes. Number three, same kind of thing, don't accent 2 and 4. Please don't accent 2 and 4. It's not going to swing harder. It just sounds lumpy. So don't accent 2 and 4. Never do that. So what have I done here now? Number 4 is, oh yes, kind of, now we're getting onto skip notes. Don't play your skip notes louder than the next beat. So sometimes you hear bass players go, that does happen, but be really aware that if the skip note's louder than the strong beat, it's going to create this kind of weird sort of like you're trying to accent the swing harder than it needs to be accented. Don't get that, get that, get that, get that. So just be aware of if you're doing that too much. There's obviously room for it, but I like my skip notes kind of even and long. I mean, there's always exceptions, but just be aware of that if you're doing that. So what we're on now, okay, now another one you've probably heard before is don't play a hammer-on slur on the strong beat. I mean, there are exceptions to the rule, but I hear so many bass players doing that, and that beat needs to be strong. So if you do that on the downbeat, then you've kind of, unless it's a very quiet section or intimate, or there's no drums, it's going to get lost. So you've got to just make sure that if you're doing any of that stuff, you've got to mean it, and you've got to like it. You're not just doing it because you think that's what people do. So don't play the hammer-on slur on the strong beat. Let's see, now we're on I think we're on number 6. Don't, what have I written here? Okay, we're still on the same topic. Don't neglect your fills and skips. I've said this a lot of times before, but so many times I've heard a bass player playing a walking bass and then they play that one triplety thing, you know, but it sounds awful and it lets the whole thing down. So if you're playing triplet fills, you've got to practice them. They've got to really mean something and be really locked in. There's a Ray Brown bass book where he writes out some of his, so that's a good place to look for some of those fills if you're not sure how they're actually played or articulated. Check out your heroes and find out how they actually articulate them with their fingers, or how they're playing them, because that adds to the sound of them. Like the skip notes with one finger have a different sound than if I play them with two fingers. Okay, so don't neglect your skips. Obviously, that's also to do with a lot of string crossing exercises and swinging your string crossing exercises. Playing those triplets. Check out Get It Together, my book. Great. Number 7, don't fill in the time with your hand movement. So a lot of the times I see bass players filling in the space, all right. They're filling in their space with actually almost slapping the bass without them realizing it. So if you're doing that, you've got to get rid of that excessive noise, unless you really are going for a slap bass thing, you know, a slap bass thing. So you have to be able to just count through that space and feel that space. It's all up here. Sometimes I tap my foot, but I'm trying to be as less physical as possible. So don't fill up the space with your right hand movement. Number 8, now we're getting on to more harmonic things. Now you've heard me say this one before. Now, as far as walking bass lines, what I hear a lot, which I don't like, is the third of the chord to the root of the chord on beats 4 and 1. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1. That D to the B flat there just sounds like it's too much of a leap. It doesn't sound great. So that one, whether it's a minor third or a major third, avoid the third to the 1 on beats 4 and 1 of the next bar. If I was playing the same bass line, I might land on the third like that instead of going. It kind of sounds like you're sort of playing a beginner walking bass line, like, or you know, on Spider-Man or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? So avoid that 3 to 1. Now, there's exceptions, and sometimes it's a part of a bigger phrase that makes sense, but really avoid it. And a lot, yeah. That's right. Even that sounds like the triad, it sounds a bit weird. So those triady things, although they're very important to learn, right? Your triads and arpeggios, when you get really nice walking bass lines, they're more kind of in stepwise motion. They're more smooth. You know, there's more chromaticism and kind of logical stepwise movement with chromatic notes too. So just avoid that one. So actually, number 9, the next one, which makes sense, is don't play chromatic notes on beats 1 and 3. Now, with this one specifically, there are exceptions to the rule, especially if it's part of a bigger melodic kind of phrase. But what I mean is, if you're just playing a basic walking bass line, so I've got those two things in one bass line. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's on the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. I've done that third thing too. Just sounds like you're a beginner and you don't know what you're doing. You've just been given F7 or F major and you're walking on it and you don't know how to get out of trouble. So now, if I wanted to fix that one phrase, I would probably make a nice melodic phrase out of it. And then land on the third of the chord, which is obviously something that you should practice as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Instead of going to. I'm kind of, giving rough examples there. So avoid the chromatic notes of the chord on the strong beats, which are 1 and 3. But obviously, the better you get, the more that you can get away with, especially if it's part of a bigger melodic phrase. Talk about that in my rhythm changes bass course. So number 10 is don't neglect the flat 9. Flat 9, I mean on the dominant chord. So the bebop scale, major scale, which everyone should learn and incorporate in their walking bass lines is and I use that all the time. Now that D flat in there is really specific to that jazz sound. You've got the flat 9, that bebop-y flat 9 sound. So if you have that on the dominant chord, then so I use that much more often than the regular. Although that does work too, but if you start incorporating the flat 9 on the dominant chords, and then you can add the diminished arpeggios that go along with that chord, say C7 flat 9. Then you can get into the nuts and bolts of some proper bebop jazz harmony. So don't neglect the flat 9 dominant chord. So number 11 is don't overexert yourself. Now we've talked about players who really pull down, like here, and Christopher Bryce calls it the chicken, doesn't he? Don't flap your arms. If you watch when I play, I've got that control, minimal movement, I can breathe, I'm relaxed, my shoulders are not tense, I'm not grinding my teeth, I'm not doing a lot of things. So don't overexert yourself, and make sure your posture is relaxed and your right hand technique is what you want it to be. Okay, so the last one, a sort of general one, number 12, is don't, I can't even read my writing, I've scribbled it out. Don't use the wrong bass players as your walking bass model. And what I mean by this is a very obvious thing. Check out the people that are really good at playing walking bass. And this is people like Ray Brown, Paul Chambers, Oscar Pettiford, Ron Carter, and Israel Crosby. There's 5 there. There's 5 great walking bass players. And I don't mean more modern players like John Patitucci or Larry Grenadier, although they're amazing bass players, but that's not their strength. And they've checked out those older players, some more than others. Anyway, so that's an obvious thing to say, but there you go. There's 12 kind of don'ts for walking bass. Please reach out to me if you have any specific questions with any of these subjects. Cheers, bye.